Stay tuned for a meeting of the Calabasas City Council. The meeting will be broadcast using Zoom and the City CTV Channel 3. Members of the City Council may teleconference into the meeting without noticing or posting an agenda at their teleconference location. Besides the live TV and Zoom broadcast, the live stream of the meeting may be viewed online at cityofcalabasas.com/CTV Live. If you want to provide public comment, press Raise Hand if you're using Zoom or *9 if you're joining by phone. Just unmute yourself by pressing *6. Say your name and the city you live in. You'll be allowed 3 minutes to address the City Council regarding any items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Council. If the power or internet goes out lasting more than 15 minutes, or if there's some event that prevents the Council from meeting or prevents you from providing public comment, then the meeting will be adjourned. Any items noticed as public hearings will be rescheduled to the next regular meeting of the City Council. Any other agenda items the Council has not taken action on will be placed on a future agenda. Now, a meeting of the Calabasas City Council.
Good evening and welcome to the Calabasas City Council meeting for March 23rd, 2022. The record should reflect that all council members, Alicia Weintraub, James Bazagian, Peter Kraut, as well as our Mayor Pro Tem David Shapiro are present. Let's start off with a roll call to confirm that.
Councilmember Kraut.
Here.
Councilmember Bazagian.
Present.
Councilmember Weintraub.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro.
Here.
Mayor Maurer.
Yes, thank you.
All present.
Right. We're going to move on to Pledge of Allegiance. And Madam Clerk, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Please join me in saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All right. And roll call for the agenda.
I think there's a little error on the agenda. I noticed earlier this evening on the adjourn section. It should say March 30th special meeting, not the regular meeting of April 13th.
You're correct.
So can we amend that, please?
Indeed.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bazagian.
Aye.
Councilmember Kraut.
Aye.
Councilmember Weintraub.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro.
Yes.
Mayor Maurer.
Yes.
Agenda.
All right. All right. We have a special individual to introduce to the community this evening. Our new acting station, Lost Hills Sheriff Station Captain, Joseph Fender, is joining us. And is he present now?
He is now. He's joining, Madam Mayor.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure he's on his way. And we have another presentation that we can go to.
Madam Mayor, he's in.
Oh, okay.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Wonderful. Welcome. We're really happy to have you back. And I thought it would be nice if you could maybe say a few words about your background and how you ended up back here at the Lost Hills Sheriff Station for those that may not be familiar with you.
Sure. And I appreciate the introduction, and good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the Calabasas City Council. My name is Joseph Fender. I was brought back just about 4 weeks now. Prior to coming back, I was the detective lieutenant here at Malibu Lost Hills Station. So I oversaw all of the investigative bureau's activities, the community impact deputies, the traffic unit, and I was the emergency operations center commander here at the station. So for our natural disasters, I headed up the EOC, as we call it, and which is usually staffed by our detectives. Prior to that, I had some lieutenant assignments in the Santa Clarita Valley and Lancaster. And most recently, I was the division aide for our division chief, Dennis Neer. So downtown at the Hall of Justice, overseeing all 5 stations that make up North Patrol Division. So Lancaster, Palmdale, Santa Clarita, West Hollywood, and Lost Hills. So I oversaw all 5 of the station's administrative staff work that would come down to division headquarters. So I'm a married 47-year-old father of 3 wonderful sons. Both of my older sons are military veterans who have just recently returned home. Now they're attending school, getting ready to start off with Cal State Northridge here pretty soon. So go Matadors. My wife is a phenomenal nurse practitioner. She's been a registered nurse for about 17 years. She's now a family nurse practitioner up in the Santa Clarita Valley. I'm a 22-year veteran of the Sheriff's Department. And again, various lieutenant assignments and kind of assignments all throughout the county of Los Angeles. 9 different patrol stations, a couple of specialized units, division headquarters a time or two, but really humbled and glad to be back in front of the Calabasas City Council and working with Ms. Weintraub, who I've had some good history with, and Mr. Bazagian, who keeps me on my toes. Good rapport with Mr. Bazagian, and got to meet Mr. Meek last week in a good meeting. So I'm just looking forward to serving Calabasas, and I'm open to any questions. I know I've provided my personal information and some phone numbers to the council members. So I can't stress that enough. Please reach out to me. As I mentioned in the email, it's customary for the station captain to have a lot of correspondence with the city manager, but I don't want the city council members to feel that they can't reach out to me on open door policy, open phone policy. Please call me and let me know what the constituents need and the feedback that you get from the city. I know we've been making some great progress on the street racing issues and how those racers are going back and forth between Calabasas and Malibu. I've spoke to Mr. Meek about the crime rate and the contractual compliance rates for Calabasas, and those are both trending very positively in the right direction. And I see great things happening for Calabasas in the next few months.
Wonderful. Well, I think just by that presentation, those that are watching can understand why we are really pleased to see you back here working on behalf of the residents. And I'm not sure if any of my council members have anything to say. If you could raise your hand, I'll go across. Councilmember Bazagian, followed by Councilmember Weintraub.
I want to welcome you, Acting Captain Fender, and hope that your tenure here is a long one, because in the 31 or so years of the department of the Lost Hill Station being open, we've had about 15 captains or acting captains, and it just would be nice to have a little continuity. But I'm very glad you're here, and we look forward to working with you. I know the crime rate is just a big challenge, and we're going to talk about that a little later on today, but I think you'll do a great job.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Weintraub, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro.
Welcome back. We're thrilled to have you back in Calabasas at Lost Hills, and just already appreciate the efforts that you're putting towards street racing in the canyons and just all of the public safety issues facing Calabasas. It's great to have you back and to have the open dialogue with you. And I know that our residents will greatly benefit from it. So thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to also welcome you back and congratulate you. Thank you for stepping up and leading our communities and keeping us all safe. And we really, really appreciate it and look forward to working with you.
Thanks, sir. I really appreciate it.
Councilmember Crowe.
I too want to welcome you back to our community and thank you for coming to serve here. And if you don't know it already, we wanted to let you know that your staff at the Lost Hills Sheriff Station, including Deputy De Mateo and the others, are fantastic people that have really done wonderful things here in the community. And we're just excited to have a new leader in place there. And just know that we appreciate all of you.
Thank you, sir. I'll definitely pass it on. Deputy De Mateo, I couldn't say enough on him. Your meeting's not long enough for me to spin his accolades, but I wish I had 20 more of him. I'll just say that.
Wonderful. All right. And speaking of Deputy De Mateo, well, before we go there, are there any members of the public, Madam Clerk, who wish to speak or ask the captain any questions?
Do not see any hands, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Well, again, we are extraordinarily fortunate to have you return to the city and the region. You have great talents and your experience is unmatched. And I expect you will move on and up. And while you're here, we're grateful.
Thank you, ma'am. I really appreciate it.
That's all right. We're going to move to our sheriff's crime report, and presenting this evening, as usual, is our very own Deputy De Matteo.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me well? Perfect. I am Deputy De Matteo of the Lost Hills Sheriff Station, and I will be presenting the crime reports for the month of January, and I also have February on hand. So stay tuned. Let's get right into it. For the month of January, we did have one armed robbery. This incident took place at a gas station on Las Virgenes Road, where the suspect presented a handgun and demanded cigarettes and cash. Next, we had 10 residential burglaries. This continues to be an issue in the city. Most of the burglaries happened on the park streets. However, the remaining burglaries were spread throughout the city. There was one burglary to a business. There were 2 burglaries to locked vehicles. There were 2 grand theft incidents. One involved a catalytic converter being removed from a Prius, and one was grand thefts from a retail store. We did have 10 petty thefts. That's a combination of retail theft, mail theft, and the dreaded porch pirates. We did have 11 thefts from unlocked vehicles. Not sure why people are leaving their cars unlocked, but it presents you to be a victim pretty quick. So that's something that we probably need to present more on our social media, but this is continuing to be an issue. There were 2 grand theft vehicles. One was a Kia Optima and the other was a Ford Eco van. And then we also did have 1 domestic violence felony. Move on to the month of February. We did have 2 assaults. The first assault was a transient. This one was interesting. Okay, so this ended up being somebody that I had reached out to for about 2 weeks prior to this incident happening. This individual came from Decatur, Illinois. This individual was in his 20s, and he was currently homeless in Calabasas. I had reached out to him several times with our representative from the COG, Gabe, trying to get this individual services, to which he continually denied. He didn't meet the criteria for a 5150 hold to get mental health services. So we tried very hard on a daily basis to get him in housing. I even went as far as to call the Decatur, Illinois Police Department to see if they can swing by his last known address to get him reunified with his family. The officer that I sent out there reached back to me and said that this individual's home had burned down. So the information I got from this individual stated that he had been in California for several months and chose Calabasas as his place to be. So in the midst of trying to get this person services, he had an incident at the Albertsons in Calabasas where he stabbed an individual with a deer antler. He did go to jail for this incident. The victim did not sustain major injuries, but I checked to see an update on this individual. And when he went to court for this incident, they released him on his own recognizance. So he's no longer in our system. And since the incident has not come back to Calabasas. Another assault that happened was a fight between coworkers at a local motel on Agora Road. We did have 6 residential burglaries, which is down from the previous month. Again, most of those burglaries occurred on the park streets. There was 1 burglary to a business, 2 burglaries to a garage or an outbuilding, and 5 burglaries from locked vehicles. These burglaries to the vehicles occurred mainly at trailheads and parking garages. We did have 6 grand theft incidents. Some of the things stolen were pool equipment, cell phones, catalytic converters, another one from a Prius, and one from a Honda Accord. And then we did have another grand theft incident from 2 different retail stores in the Commons Shopping Center. 4 petty theft incidents, 2 thefts from unlocked vehicles, which is significantly down from the prior month. And then there were an additional 3 vehicles stolen. One of those vehicles was an Audi R8 from the dealership, which is a pretty expensive vehicle to steal. 1 motorcycle and 1 golf cart from the Malibu Canyon apartment complex. That's it for the crime report. Do you have any questions, concerns, comments?
Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any members of the public that wish to speak?
I do not see any hands, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and I'll turn to my colleagues. I see Councilmember Bizagian.
Yes, good evening, Deputy DeMatteo, and thank you for all of your service, which has been outstanding. I am troubled by the report and the status of the crime rate here. As I'm sure you remember, because we've talked about it, in 2020 to 2021, there was a 35% increase in the crime rate in the city, unprecedented. Now, in the first 2 months, there's a 54% increase in the crime rate just on top of that 35%. The residential burglaries in 2020 were at 19, 2021 is at 42. And if extrapolating, if the trends continue this year, we'll have 60, which is 3 times what we had 2 years ago, which is just very alarming, because that means that every community in the city is going to know something that, you know, a burglary will have happened in their area, and it's just, it affects too many people. So while we don't have the kind of violent crime that other cities sometimes encounter, I'm wondering if since we can't increase the number of sheriffs anymore because there's a freeze on the contract, what exactly is the Sheriff's Department recommending in the interim so that we don't, you know, these spikes don't continue?
Yeah, well, if you can see in the month of February, we had over 70 arrests for that month, and crime was down significantly from the previous month. So what we're trying to do is to remind residents in the city to prevent from being a victim. So that means in regards to theft or burglary, don't leave valuables in plain sight. Sure, remember to lock your vehicles in your homes. Some of the burglaries I did read, there was a hot prowl burglary in Calabasas where an individual left his slider door open and the suspect walked right into his house and stole money and then let himself right back out. So remember to lock your possessions. Don't leave things in plain sight where criminals would want to make entry to retrieve that property. And also, we're seeing a trend on residential burglaries where suspects will make entry through the second story. A lot of homeowners, if they have alarm systems, don't alarm the second story. They alarm the first floor. So if you can, look into getting the second story alarmed and just take the necessary steps to prevent from being a victim. And that also includes to ensure that your security cameras are working properly, you have adequate lighting. And that goes for just for vehicles and homes. And as far as the retail theft and the mail theft, which is a big thing, and the porch pirates, that's something where we just want to make the community aware that, hey, if you guys see something, say something, and please communicate with your neighbors and friends.
Thank you. And I'll have a little bit more to say at the end of the meeting for future agenda items, but thank you for that explanation.
Okay.
And Councilmember Bizagian, did you want to acknowledge the heroic efforts of Deputy DeMatteo in your
Yes.
community?
I was one of the mail theft victims. There was a serial mail theft in my neighborhood, and Deputy DeMatteo found the suspect miraculously with a whole stack of mail from my neighborhood and other neighborhoods, and resolved a whole bunch of cases and prevented a lot of, credit card fraud and identity theft just in that one fell swoop. So we appreciate that. This just happened this last week.
Captain Fender, would you like to respond to what you heard?
I did. I just wanted to add on to what Deputy DeMatteo was saying about the crime rate. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate Mr. Bizagian staying on top of those those topics, and he has since I've known him in the last year and a half that I was assigned here. But when I took over just about 4 weeks ago, I ran the crime stats because I knew that was an issue for Calabasas. And Mr. Meek and I have had these conversations. I checked that we've poured a lot of resources into Calabasas over the last 4 weeks, not just with the street racing, but we've done, I'll just term them operations. I don't want to really give away too much of what we've been doing to try to combat some of those other crime trends, because, you know, there's other people that listen out here in the interweb for these meetings. But I wanted the public to know that we've made a concerted effort to reach out and try to do some different things with regard to the porch pirates and the retail theft. And I reported to Mr. Meek that on Monday, or as of first thing Monday morning, the crime rate was down to 21.9% from just over 30% when I took over. So almost down about 10% from the 4 weeks. Now I know that's a little consolation, you know, 30% or 21.9% is 21.9% too much for me. But the crime trend is going in the right direction. We are pouring some resources into Calabasas. I've directed the patrols to make a concerted effort to deal with those issues. And I think, as Deputy DiMatteo was saying, I think we're going to start seeing the impact of some of those resources. To what Mr. Bazagian was saying about the moratorium, I know I responded to the council members in an email, but he's absolutely correct that there is a moratorium on the expansion of contracts at this point. But that doesn't mean that we don't have the resources from both inside the station and outside of the station that I can bring in to supplement the law enforcement services we have. So when we see these spikes in crime, I still have the ability to reach out to other stations or task other deputies within the station to address those crime concerns.
Thank you. Councilmember Crowe.
Thank you, Deputy DiMatteo, for your report. I really appreciate you being here for us all this time. Just a couple of questions, and I know you can't comment on ongoing investigations, but I think it would really help the public to have an understanding, a feeling for what do your investigations turn into after incidents are reported. I mean, there might be a perception that, you know, incidents get reported and no investigation takes place. And you mentioned, I think I heard you say that there was a number of incidents in the same neighborhood, which would lead somebody to believe that there's a tie to those incidents. At what point do you start investigating? How deep do you get? And when do we see resolution to these sort of things?
That's a good question. So when someone's a victim of a crime such as theft or burglary, so the responding deputies is out to conduct an initial investigation. What that does is gather as much information as they can, document the incident, and then the incident will go through the Detective Bureau. Time permitting, the deputy can spend extra time on that investigation in the field, gathering as much information as they can. Sometimes that doesn't always work out regarding the call volume and what's going on that night. So a deputy will go out, conduct an investigation, write a report, and send it to the Detective Bureau. A part of the Detective Bureau's job is to read the report, follow up on any leads that they've got regarding video surveillance footage. If there was a fingerprints requested, then a fingerprint technician will respond out after they've made an appointment with the victim. And so there's several things. If there's video, if there's DNA, if there's fingerprints, and after those things are collected, then it's up to the detective's job to try and identify that suspect. So it's a process. But I mean, unless we have something concrete in regards to DNA or fingerprints or video surveillance so that we can identify this individual, or information about a vehicle or a license plate, it's pretty difficult to catch that person. So we also do look at crime trends. So if there's a pattern in a specific neighborhood, we'll focus our resources in that area during that time frame for later dates to hopefully catch a suspect.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I know sometimes it's not always clear to us what happens behind the scenes after an incident is reported. So thank you for all of your efforts and your recent successes, and look forward to working with you more in the future.
Thank you.
Councilmember Weintraub.
Just wanted to say thank you for everything that you're doing. We all appreciate it so much. Regarding the residential burglaries, are we still seeing the South American like tourism burglaries? Do we think that's what's hitting our city?
It's a combination of both. Yes, they're still out there. However, the burglaries did decrease from January to February, and I believe that they're decreasing in March. So yes, they're still out there, and there are other groups that go out there, and some of them are just crime of opportunities. But yeah, the major theft crews are still out there. They still are a problem, but it's not just for Calabasas, it's throughout the whole country.
Okay. And if people, is it helpful when people call and turn over their videos? Is that
Yes.
something?
Very helpful. So that's another part of the investigation, the initial investigation for when a deputy responds to a crime is to see if the homeowner, the victim themselves, have video surveillance. And if they don't, do any of the neighbors that may have caught a scene where the crime happened, see if they can go and ask that homeowner if they can review the video or if they can send it in.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro.
Thank you. And thank you, Deputy De Matteo, for all your hard work and everybody's work. Following up on that, the last comment, last question, would you also recommend, or is there a way we as a city can encourage our communities, our neighborhood watch communities in our city to work closer with the sheriff's department to provide information and bolster and make their communities safer from these types of incidents?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know pre-COVID, I was in touch with a lot of the HOA captains, neighborhood watch captains throughout the city. And we would have monthly meetings or bi-monthly meetings, and we would go over crime trends in their neighborhoods, and everything was great. So once COVID happened, that kind of slowed down a lot. But I know we do have something scheduled coming up where all that HOA presidents will get together with us so we can discuss current events and ways to prevent crime trends from happening in their neighborhood. So it is a valuable tool. And also, I think this will be a good opportunity for me to let the community know that a way to reduce crime in the neighborhood is graffiti, keeping graffiti out of the city. So I have started a program. It's a volunteer program where you can join deputies from the station. Members of the community can join deputies from the station on specific dates, scheduled dates, and we can go out and we can remove graffiti in the city. I don't know if you've noticed, but we're starting to see it more and more. And this is a good way for community members to build positive relationships with the Lost Hills Sheriff Station and also restore the image of the city. So stuff like that, it really helps. And I hope to get into touch with the HOA presidents and neighborhood watch captains here soon.
Fantastic. That was the next question I was going to bring, or a comment I was going to ask you about. And is it possible? We'd love to have that information so we can put it up on our city website so anybody who's interested can get involved and participate in that worthwhile program for all of our safety and beautification.
Perfect.
Just one comment, and this again may have been January, and I'm jumping ahead, but I thought it was February. You talked about arrests and following through with certain investigations. In February, I believe it was, there were 2 arrests made. One was with a group that was involved in commercial burglaries, and the other was related to the incident, which we all read about and heard about outside of the Sagebrush Cantina area. So I want to thank you and all the department for the interagency work that was done in order to help those criminals be arrested.
Yes, big props to LAPD on that one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Deputy De Matteo, I just have a few follow-up questions. Is it safe to say that unlocked car burglaries are the #1 crime in Calabasas?
So I would say, yeah, theft from unlocked vehicles is up there.
Okay.
But I would say theft in general is the biggest problem we have. Regards to, sorry about that. I'd say theft in general. So theft from unlocked vehicles, petty theft, mail theft, retail theft, theft in general is the biggest thing in Calabasas. And there are a lot of ways to prevent that from happening.
I
So-
know. And in fact, I wanted to say, each time you're on and you go over the list of things people can do to prevent being a victim is so invaluable. We have new people watching every time you're here. So feel free to continue to pound that over and we will too.
Yeah, we constantly post tips on our social media. So if you follow the sheriff station on any of our social media platforms, it's just a good reminder so that you can lock your property and, keep crime down.
Right. The graffiti removal, thank you very much for starting up that program. Is there a contact number? At this point, we've said if people see it, to report it to info@cityofcalabasas.com.
Okay.
Is that where you'd want people to respond to if they're interested in volunteering, or is that to come and we can manage that?
So what I want to do is through the HOA meeting that's coming up, what I wanted to do was provide my email address, my contact information number to the HOA representatives so that they can spread it throughout their communities. And anyone that's interested can send me an email. I can attach them to a list. And then when I can create a date to where the community and the Lost Hills Sheriff Station can go out together, I'll send out a chain email. And if people want to volunteer their time, great. If they can't make it and all they can do is just report it, then what I want them to do is contact me. But for graffiti that is in sensitive areas or places that are unsafe for volunteers, we would refer that to the city so it can get removed professionally.
Great. You might consider creating a new, an email with a QR code, and that code, see graffiti, report it here, and people will walk up with their iPhones and just send you a direct email. But if you want to keep it within an HOA, I understand that as well.
Well, that's a great idea too. That's a little too tech savvy for me. So I would have to get
I'll
some.
teach you. All right. Well, thank you again for your service, and thank you and welcome again, Captain Fender. We hope to not see you too often, but certainly for these reports.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
All right, Madam Clerk, has Assistant Fire Chief Smith arrived?
They're in, Madam Mayor,
Okay,
and then
wonderful.
Megan Courier.
And a continuation of our presentations related to public safety. This evening, we have Los Angeles County Fire Department Assistant Fire Chief Drew Smith. I'm not sure if he brought anyone else, but I'm sure he'll introduce anyone else, and welcome.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the leadership at the City of Calabasas. And yes, I have Community Services Liaison Megan Courier here. So we are co-located here via Zoom. And I just wanted to start with that your fire family is doing good. We have been very busy internally with training and continuing to meet the need within the organization through these challenging 2 years. And we are meeting that need. We've had no reduction in staffing. And as we look forward, as we know that spring is here now, we're going to transition into spring, summer, and then fall. So we're continuing the endeavor as we go into our brush clearance. We'll be going out with your firefighters doing their brush clearance inspections with the residents. So we're looking at that. We try to time that based upon Mother Nature and how she cooperates with the rain. So our residents don't have to do it twice, and we get good compliance with that. And we appreciate the continued compliance that we do have within the City of Calabasas. So Calabasas treats us very well on meeting the need for the vegetation management so we can have the life and property endeavors met. And just to couple into our working relationship with Captain Fender. We have a great working relationship with Lost Hills Sheriff Station. Captain Fender is a friend, so that makes things very nice. And we all have the common goal for the public safety component. And we train and communicate routinely at Captain Fender's level and below with our firefighters and the deputies that like to visit our fire stations, because you may have heard that our firefighters are great cooks and always have coffee available for them. So we have a great working relationship with our law partners. So it is fabulous that way. And of course the phone's ringing. So with that, I'll give it to Megan Courier, and then we can entertain any questions that you may have. And we appreciate being here.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I just had one piece of news that I wanted to share with you all. Chief Smith here, he is no longer the acting assistant chief. He has been officially promoted to assistant chief of Division 7. So he's not going anywhere for a while.
I am not. Thank you.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Are you ready for some comments and questions? Okay, great. Madam Clerk, are there any members of the public that wish to go first?
Madam Mayor, I do not see any hands.
Okay, I'll go to my colleagues. I actually think I'm going to start off with a quick question. I think it was during the Woolsey fire that we, and I don't recall us ever doing this, De Anza Park became a staging area for some out-of-town firefighters, out of county. I think they were US Force. I can't quite remember. Maybe you can, but I thought what an excellent resource some of our parks could be to, and I don't know if you have a list of those or if it was spontaneous, if it was planned. It seemed like it was spontaneous, but what are your thoughts about coordinating with other cities to help with any kind of, overflow of people coming in for a major fire?
So we have a plan in place, and we've had those plans in place for quite a while. So De Anza Park is one of what we call a staging area. So if you think of how we're navigating an emergency, so not just a wildfire, if we have to call for additional resources, we have to put them in a position to be able to meet the need. So De Anza Park is one of those. Calabasas High School is one of those. We have places throughout the Santa Monica Mountains that we have pre-designated as options to put resources so we can insert them for the right mission at the right time. So it is by design. I will be glad to share with you a playbook that we have, which is broken down through the cities and unincorporated within the Santa Monica Mountains. So actually the city of Calabasas has its own section to meet the needs for where we have pre-designated staging areas, pre-designated incident command posts, and all of them may not be the right fit at the right time because we couldn't possibly use Calabasas High School, which we have used in the past on fires, but if we have school that's in session or some event, we have to have a different set of options. So to inform you on how we do that, we would love to get together and we can show you our methodology behind things with map programs, and also what we have is our wildland response guidebook that helps aid us to make those decisions on all risk emergencies.
Well, I'm sure all of us would probably want to take you up on learning that aspect of the response. So thank you for that. And then the last thing I want to say is your ears must have been burning. We had the city manager and I had a meeting with Brent Woodworth on the Public Safety Committee in Malibu, and he just thinks the world of you, as do we, but what he underscored was your expertise in wildfire management. And so thank you for that. And Megan, thank you always for being helpful. Before I pass on to my colleagues, can you, we have our first Fire Safe Council now up and operating, and they're working as quickly as they can on home hardening. Is there anything that, or I know there is, but could you give the top 3 or 4 things a person can do to their homes today in preparation for what could come down the road?
Yes, so the top thing I would say is have a plan in place internally with your family for the life safety component. to plan ahead, to not react to an emergency, but have an internal response to it if you have to make a decision on an evacuation order. If you have an evacuation warning, that allots us time to implement your family plan with accountability and having your plan in place if you need to leave. On the home hardening, there's a lot of basics that we can do that can get overlooked. One of those is the maintenance of your yard. The dead wood or fine organic material that's dry that can lead to larger fires in and around the home that causes structure loss. And that's leaf litter in the gutters. It's routine maintenance of limbing your trees, getting rid of the dead wood that's in your trees, having the 5-foot ember resistant zone with and around your house and hardscaping it in designated areas. A second one is looking at your vents. And looking at your vents, if they are ember resistant type of vents that you cannot allow or highly deter embers to impacting into your attic space. And the third would be where you store your flammables in and around your house to put them in a position that they're not exposed to some sort of a ember or ignition start. There's a lot of good things that we can do that is just routine and then expand into the home hardening endeavor, but there's a lot of maintenance that we can do around our homes to help the structure defense mission. Plus, it helps your firefighters have different tactical options in the structure defense mission. The good thing with the city of Calabasas, you have very strong water systems and big roads as compared to some of the other areas within the Santa Monica Mountains. So every area within the Santa Monica Mountains is very unique, and the challenge can be very different. But we look at targeting those high-risk days, as we know, as we go into fall and towards Halloweenish, and we know that Mother Nature turns on the fan. We get the east winds. Those are our high-risk days that we need to really be very alert and aware of, and that's when our largest fire growth days exist. Long answer. I have a head full of information I like to share, so I streamlined it as best I could.
Well, that was fantastic. And to your point about outside combustibles, it's as simple as bringing your outdoor furniture into the garage or putting it in the pool. To me, that was so obvious, but I really never thought that way. Those are the things we need to bring in. So, all right.
And we always refer people to our Ready, Set, Go program, which can be found on our website, which is all of that information and more.
Yeah, and I think that we're ready, social media wise, to start accelerating this kind of information when the fire season starts and when it's red flag days and things like that. So, all right, let's go to Councilmember Weintraub.
Thank you both for being here, and congratulations on the permanent position. I just wanted to know if you could just briefly tell the timeline for the brush clearance, when people will start receiving visits and when things have to be complete.
Okay, so we're targeting right now for Calabasas. We're going to identify potentially, we're going to start transitioning May 1st to May 15th. We could extend that if we get late rains. There may be some leniency in there, depending on Mother Nature and rain, so people don't have to do their brush clearance twice. So right now we're targeting May 1st. And extending it, and we want everybody to be in compliance by June 1st, June 15th at the latest.
And the annual notices have already been sent out, so people should have those brush clearance notices already.
I got mine. Okay, and we can help hopefully through our social media channels reminding people about these deadlines. So if we can get that out to our staff, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Mayor Pro
Yeah,
Tem
thank you.
Shapiro.
Thank you, and congratulations on the Chief Smith on the, I will continue to congratulate you, and Megan, thank you both for your support of our community. It was great seeing you at Station 68 for the retirement of our local firefighter, Todd, a little bit ago, and we had a good opportunity to talk about some of these items. Questions and comments already raised are excellent ones, and I appreciate your response. So thank you for being here and helping to keep us all safe and reminding us and coming back to help reinforce those things, which will help keep our community safe. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you both for your service to the county and especially the city of Calabasas. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for your
You're
support.
welcome.
All right, we're going to move on to council announcements. I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro.
Just quickly, one big thank you to staff, to Alex Farsadi, to Robert Yalda, to all our staff, to Principal Brazil and all those PFC presidents over at Chaparral, and the almost 100 students and scouts who were present, along with our council members, of course, and our city manager, who helped make Arbor Day one of the best celebrations we've ever had in the city. It was truly tremendous and great to see everybody out there for such a great cause. So looking forward to even more people next year and getting all those kids out there. I know Mary Sue will talk, I'm sure, about the one tree, which was great. This week is also one of the special weeks in our city. We have once a year, sometimes twice, is the USTA Men's Pro Tennis Championships at the Calabasas Tennis and Swim Center. And the matches are going on all week. These are pros. They may not be at the US Open, but after playing at Calabasas, many of them have been ranked at the US Open. So these are top players you just haven't possibly seen on the national or international circuit yet. They play Friday, they play all week, but the main big matches are Friday, Saturday. The singles final is Sunday at 1 o'clock. Go out to the tennis center, support it, and get as close as you possibly can to seeing some great, great tennis. Thanks very much.
Okay. I will add that I think it's one of the best events that the city of Calabasas hosts, and it, like the Mayor Pro Tem said, these are professional athletes. The caliber of the tennis is what you see on TV. So join if you can. Councilmember Weintraub.
Just wanted to reiterate how great Arbor Day was and to thank our staff. Felt like a normal city event, just having everyone back out there together. So it was much appreciated. And just another reminder for everyone to please slow down on our roads at all times, but especially during school hours. There are kids walking to school, lots of activity going on. Everyone just needs to slow down so that we do not have any accidents. And that goes at night too. We're just continuing to hear about high speeds causing accidents of people of all ages. And just another reminder to please be safe on our roads for yourself and for the community. Thank you.
Councilmember Craig.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody, or for those that don't know it yet, the Cambria Hotel has opened here in Calabasas. It is just off of Las Virgenes at the 101. And we're excited to have a ribbon cutting there next Tuesday from 4 to 7 on Tuesday, the 29th. Should be a great chance to check out the grounds. They have a wonderful happy hour, great services in the area as well. We have electric car chargers. We have access to our trails. We have a park and ride established in a shared parking facility. It's a great addition to the city, and I hope you can come out and join us for the ribbon cutting.
Wonderful. And Councilmember Bizaji.
Couple announcements. Earth Day Festival is coming up April 16th. It's 2 to 5 p.m. at Las Virgenes Creek on Agora Road. Slight difference of where it was before. And we have our egg hunt coming up, our annual egg hunt on April 9th, starting at 9 a.m. in different time periods at De Anza Park. And then finally, I did want to mention, because it's actually been a month since we met, it seems like not that much time has passed, but a lot has happened in the last month around the world. And I'm very distressed at what is going on in Eastern Europe. And I hope that my colleagues would join me in hoping for a peaceful end to a completely unjustified and unnecessary conflict that threatens to spill over into many different countries. It's something like we haven't seen in a long, long time in Europe, and it is very, very troubling to see the images that are being portrayed. So thank you, Mayor Maurer, for that ability to broadcast that.
And thank you, Councilmember Bazagian, for bringing this up. It is certainly one of the most unsettling, frightening times I've ever experienced in my life. And each day seems to become increasingly unstable and dangerous. And my heart goes out to the Ukrainian people. And my heart is swelling with the goodness of the countries around the border. I have been monitoring the refugee situation. I've heard from a lot of residents asking what the status of that is and what could it be. Right now, there have been a number of different federal announcements. Most prominently is that those that were awaiting with permits to stay in the country who are already here have been allowed to stay, and they will be among the first to bring their family members over. I also want to mention that we have Afghanistan refugees who not too long ago, 6 months ago, were evacuated out in such dramatic circumstances. And there's a large group of them living in Agora Hills. And I'm going to be talking to the mayor of Agora Hills next week about what, if anything, we can do to help them resettle here in America. But I join you, and we all do, in that just dangerous and frightening and sad time. You've made all the announcements that I was going to make, but I'll touch on a couple. The Arbor Day was extraordinary, and it was especially special to me because one of the trees I planted with my 3 sons is still there, and it's over 15 years old. It's beautiful, kind of in the heart of the center. We have over the years planted other trees at Chaparral and elsewhere, but that one is has special meaning to me. And my last announcement is tomorrow night, and this will be up on our calendar at 7 p.m. I think it is. Let me get the note. 7 p.m. on Zoom. It'll be on our calendar. Will be an update on the wildlife crossing that will be going right over the 101 at Liberty Canyon. And we've been reading about that and hearing about this news, and the final funding came in, the plans are underway. And if you are interested in the latest on that, please join me at 7 p.m. tomorrow night on Zoom. And again, the Zoom address will be on the city's website. All right, that does it for council announcements. We'll move on to oral communication and public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any members of the public wishing to speak on items not on the agenda?
Madam Mayor, I don't see any hands up.
And could you kindly remind the public about the process for commenting on items that are coming up as far as raising hands and if they're on the phone?
Sure, if you wishing to speak on any item on the agenda, please raise hand. And if you joining via phone, please press *9 and then *6 to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's helpful to remind people as they come and go during the meeting. All right, we're going on to consent items. We have items 1 through 7. Are there any items that anyone wishes to pull off the agenda?
I have a question about
Councilmember Kraut,
Thank you. I'd like to pull item 4.
item number 4. Are there any others? All
Two,
right, may I have a motion?
can I have two off? I'm sorry.
Oh, Councilmember Bazagian, yes.
Okay, two. I have a
Oh, two,
question.
I'm sorry. Okay. So that's 2 and 4. I don't see any other hands. Your hand is still up? Oh, it's down. Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve consent items 1, 3, 5, 6, and 7?
So moved.
Second,
All right, Madam Clerk, can you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Bosajian,
Aye.
Councilmember Kraut,
Aye.
Councilmember Weintraub,
aye.
Mayor Potem Shapiro,
Yes.
Mayor Mauer.
Yes.
Carries by 0.
All right, let's start off with item number 2, Councilmember Bazagian.
I did have a question to the city manager and perhaps to the mayor. I'm fine with continuing the teleconferencing, but do we have an idea of when that might end, or how long we anticipate going along this process?
Madam Mayor, can I answer that one?
Yes, please.
So Councilmember Bazagian, we have an item on our agenda for next week, March 30th, to discuss in-person meetings, but also the continuation of either Zoom or other methods of reaching out to the community. So that will be on our discussion for next week, looking for direction from the council on that.
Thank you.
And I will add that this week, the governor, through the Bagley-Keene Act, and maybe Matt, you know more about this than I do, but state agencies must start, I think, starting in April, meeting in person. Is that
Yes,
correct?
Madam Mayor, the state, through the governor, has ordered that all the state agencies subject to the Bagley-Keene Act, which is the state equivalent of the Brown Act that governs our meetings, have to go back starting April 1st. That is not binding on the city. We retain the ability under the legislation AB 361 to continue to meet remotely if desired. And as the city manager noted, that'll be a question for the council at our next meeting. Thank you.
So if you sit on any state boards, like I do at the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, we will be moving to in person. All right. Is there a motion to approve item number 2?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bosajian,
Aye.
Councilmember Kraut,
Aye.
Councilmember Weintraub,
Aye.
Mayor Potem Shapiro,
Yes.
Mayor Mauer.
Yes.
Carries by 0.
All right, we're moving on to item number 4. Councilmember Kraut, did you want to say something, or do we have any members of the public on wanting to comment on number 4?
Well, I would just, I think this began with some comments from the public, so I think you're probably best if it's okay with you to, let's start with the comments from the public, because I'm sure they have the same concerns I do.
Madam Mayor, I do not see any hands up. So members of the public, if you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand. Oh, we do have one hand up. Calabasas. Oh, Mr. Sawara, Mr. or Mrs. Sawara, I'm not sure who it is. John or John, please.
It's John, and I see that that this particular item wants to eliminate the ceding of time. And, not that the ceding of time is ever used very much in the city of Calabasas. I've only seen it used on a couple of occasions. And I guess, so I don't understand why it's received, why people want to eliminate it. In fact, my thought is that it should also be applied to the city council. That there are items that come up where it's very difficult to be able to put together a meaningful presentation based on 3-minute segments. And in fact, with those of you that might remember years ago, Soul Cycle, when they tried to break up their presentation into 3-minute segments, it turned into a disaster because the transition could not be handled very well. And if members of the public would like to cede their time to somebody else, why not? And it might help us do a better job of presenting what we feel about a particular thing, and particularly when it turns out that the developer is given unlimited time and staff is given great gobs of time to present their viewpoints. So thank you very much. Those are my thoughts. I'd like you to consider not eliminating the ceding of time. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. City Manager, would you like to respond to that question?
No response at this time, Madam Mayor.
Well,
We have another speaker, Madam Mayor, Larissa Byrne.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Okay, hi, my name's Larissa Byrne, and I wanted to echo what John Sawara said. We really value our community. I think you've seen that with the residents showing up. And I mean, those are stakeholders, probably the greatest stakeholders are the people that live here and the people that elect you guys, and we trust you guys to make good decisions, and you've done that. You've had educated people show up with really legitimate concerns over and over in the past couple of years. And we've adapted to the Zoom, and we've done our best to stay in that kind of respectful place where we can have a say in how their communities are shaped. And you guys keep talking about how you value our input and how you want the residents to be involved, but then you have an item like this where it's just one more limitation, it feels like. One more limitation that you're putting on the public who's already struggling to keep up with the changing ways of meeting. And I think the people that do show up have proven themselves over and over that they are interested, they are educated, they're looking into the research, they're trying to give you something to go on, and you guys have stepped up, and I appreciate it. And I'm sure most of the residents do. I don't know why it's not okay to cede minutes. Malibu does it beautifully. I don't think anybody's going to end up 25 minutes wasting your time. But I would ask that you really consider not limiting the publics and the stakeholders anymore. Encourage our participation and try to go with that a little bit more. That's all. Thanks for listening. I'm done.
I see no other hands, Madam Mayor.
okay. Who can?
Oh,
who's going to
disregard that. I'm Joe Shilko.
Hi, thank you. Joe Chilko, longtime resident. I did submit written comments, and I hope you've seen them. They very much echo the last two speakers. And I find that the ceding of time is particularly effective under certain circumstances. And those are the circumstances involving large development. And an EIR is typically at least 600 pages. At least half of that is highly technical data. So it takes a lot of time, effort, and research to dig into it. And to have the opportunity to present our case in a cogent, fluid manner by being able to cede to one spokesperson is a very effective way of making our case. And it is the same opportunity that is given to the applicant in that the staff makes a very in-depth presentation, and it is presenting things to the best of the ability of the applicant. And we have no problem with that. We just want a place at the table, and we'd like the opportunity to express all our thoughts, not just the 3-minute chunks. And I think in this particular case, if it's coming before the planning meeting, or if it's coming before the city council, and it involves large developments, then I think that we should be allowed to cede time. And thank you very much for your consideration.
All right, if you wish to speak, push the raise hand icon, and Madam Clerk.
No more hands, Madam Mayor.
Okay. And which staff person can answer the question why that was removed?
The city manager has his hand up.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to just clarify, I didn't want to respond directly as that was being public comment, but again, responding to your question of why that was removed, that was done so to be in harmony with the practice and the policy for city council meetings. Again, this is a policy decision. And so the matter before the council is, per your flavor, how you'd like to proceed on this. As was mentioned in the public comments, some cities do seed time, others don't. We do have a resolution that does not allow the seeding of time for our city council meetings. And so this resolution makes that consistent. However, this is at the direction and discretion of the council members as a policy.
So what I'm hearing is that you wanted to align the two policies.
That is correct.
Okay. Councilmember Kraut.
Well, thank you. And thank you for all of the public that spoke and sent correspondence on this item. I've served on the Planning Commission and seen projects where seeding of time was allowed and seen projects where seeding of time was not. They've been big projects, they've been small projects. One that comes to mind was a very small residential project, and the neighbor next door wanted to speak. And there was certainly some issues in that particular project, and there was some inequities in that the individual who was before the Planning Commission to build something was given a chance to speak, first, was brought back to speak to answer questions, and then allowed to continue to speak. And meanwhile, the neighbor wasn't able to get their whole statement out in 3 minutes. I believe from my experience witnessing these on the Planning Commission that it's more effective when individuals with a like mind can put their thoughts together and cede time to each other. Then we get one well-spoken, organized, non-repetitive explanation of how they see a project, as opposed to 3 or 4 or 5 or more repetitive attempts by several people to say a lot of the same things in a short period of time. So I think it's a better communication tool to allow seeding of time. And I would certainly like to encourage my fellow council members to be with me in removing this edit from our document here in item number 4. And if we are of the same mind, perhaps we would look at doing that for the city council as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually going to jump ahead here next because I also have a different consideration that I'd like my colleagues to consider as you go around the table. And that is another clarification or change is that commission meetings may start as early as 4 p.m. And that is a change from up to 4 p.m. from 6 p.m. And I will tell you, as a professional public engagement specialist, if you want to lose members of the public and have a small turnout, you move it up to 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock because people are still working. So I'm not sure. I know we only have one commission doing this right now. Madam Clerk, is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Mayor.
So I would ask them, like the Planning Commission, to start at 6 p.m. to ensure that we have the greatest number of people attending as possible. With that, I'll move to Councilmember Bazan.
Madam Mayor, we have others starting at 5:30 as well. So
Okay, well, the point is that if it's before 6 o'clock, you're losing people like me who work and other people that are still working. I know it might be convenient for some, but it's well known to reduce the number of participation. You start it before 6. All right, Councilmember Bazan.
Okay, I have a number of them. I'll go through them quickly on the resolution by number. Item number 1, exactly what Mary Sue said. For the reason she said, there are people who are working, there are people who have to, cart around children from school, from other activities during that time period. And then you go into the dinner hour where, some people may not be able to leave their homes and come to the meeting or participate. So I would like it to go back to 6 p.m. as well. Item number 2 to me, and maybe the city attorney can chime in as well. I do not feel that item number 2 is well taken. I think it could be illegal, in fact, to say that you're going to shut down public comment. What if the public comment period exceeds the time allotted for the item? Do we then tell the people who have already submitted cards, we're taking a vote, we're shutting down public comment? I don't think that would be legal, but I'll ask Matt. Is that appropriate to do something like that?
The commission always has an opportunity to continue an item, and that doesn't, even if it's in the middle of public comment, that does not violate any law, provided no action is taken before public comment is finished. As a practical matter, I have never seen that exercised in the 10 years I've worked for the city. So perhaps that line could be struck to reflect practice.
Well, I don't see how that could. I wasn't referring to them continuing the item. I'm referring to them taking a vote. I mean, this is not what that says. This makes it look like they're going to just stop the item, and if there's no motion to continue, they're just going to end the item. I don't like this clause. It's very unclear, and it's also, if people show up to a hearing, the body that's hearing the hearing should stay the course and finish the hearing. It should not be that they continue it or reduce. I've even seen some mayors reduce public comment, say, well, now we're late into the evening, we're going to go from 3 minutes to 1 minute. And I think Mary Sue remembers that. That's happened before. That's not right. So I think that I would like that entire clause removed. And just my own 2 cents. Going on to number 4, I actually take a different view, with all due respect to the people who wrote in. I find it somewhat disruptive to have ceding of time constantly, because some people come with their families and they just, it wasn't people who are going to speak in public comment necessarily. And they just, grab people in the audience and say, okay, now I'm taking 20 minutes. I don't think that's an appropriate way to handle that. I think it elongates public hearings. And I think that most everything can be said through either written submissions supplemented by a 3-minute presentation. We even allow people to present things through video footage ahead of time or to pre-plan their presentations. So I would not want ceding of time. I certainly would be willing to consider making it permissible, but I don't want to say that it has to be that you could have to allow ceding of time. I would not vote for that. So those are my comments on the item. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Crowe. Councilmember Crowe.
I already spoke, Madam Mayor. I think.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm looking at Councilmember Weintraub and saying, Councilmember Crowe, wake up.
Okay, let's see. We talked about the 4 o'clock versus 6 o'clock. I have mixed feelings about it. There's different people who, different times work for different people. So I think the issue with some of our planning commission meetings, when they last till midnight, that doesn't do anyone any good. People cannot sit in our council chambers till all hours of the night. So I think in lengthy public hearings, I would support starting early, but I also think that we need to keep the hybrid model for situations like that. I just think it's like no one wins in those situations when the meetings go so late, but I would not recommend that they start at 4 o'clock at every meeting. Back to the seating of time, I kind of have mixed feelings because I just never really thought this was a big issue. Both on the planning when I was on the planning commission and on the council, when it happened, it was never a big issue. It happened, and it didn't take away from the subject matter or cause any issues. So I was actually really surprised that this was brought up. I don't think it's a everyday occurrence, but when it does happen, I just did not have an issue with it. It wasn't a big point to me. Someone brought up Malibu, but Matt, what about other cities?
This is one that varies pretty heavily by city and by culture. Most of the cities I'm familiar with do not allow seating time, but not to say that it doesn't exist in a number of places. Malibu is noted. I confess I didn't look up Agora or Hidden Hills or Westlake to see what our COG partners do. That might be worth something considering. And I would actually ask, perhaps City Clerk would know that one.
I do not know, but I can definitely check.
Any other questions? Councilmember Weintraub?
No, that's it.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro?
Thank you. I guess I had a question for Kindon. First of all, I know that some of the commissions over the years have, and especially in the last 2 years, given the pandemic and COVID, protocols have changed times. But what other reasons are there for having differing times on the commissions? I know the Historic Preservation Commission doesn't meet that often, and maybe those individuals only can meet a certain time, and there really isn't, unfortunately, a lot of public comment in looking at the history of that commission. So I may understand that, but what about the other commissions, if you know the reason for the varying times?
Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for that question. I don't have all of the history as to why our commissions have changed times. From what I do understand, many of these requests have come from the commissioners to move the meeting at a lower or earlier hour. With staffing, there could be the possibility of overtime, but that can be mitigated through scheduling. And so, that's something that, through a management process, we can regulate as well.
Okay, thank you. And so as far as the timing goes, since we're talking about that item or number R, I agree that it's, especially when there's items of importance, that the meeting should be where public can be involved. Once we go back to in person and even virtually, there should be some consideration of a reasonable time. So I'm okay with, if we could get some consistency, whatever that means, on the commissions. As far as there was another item brought up as far as the number 2, I think it was, James brought up. I agree with James on that one. And as far as number 4, which is the seating of time, I too have a mixed opinion on that. And having received letters and many letters on some of our bigger projects, and I read them all, and I find that a majority of the comments are reflective, pretty much, or even sometimes reading those letters to us. I don't know what happens as much, if it happens as much at planning, the planning commission, but what my thought process is probably aligned with Councilmember Bazagian on this one. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I will add my other comments related to things that were said. And when I suggested that all all commission meetings started at 6, I did not want to include the planning commission because we moved that intentionally up to 5 because of the length that those meetings were going. So my recommendation would be to have meetings, commission meetings start no earlier than 6 p.m. except for the planning commission. And again, the reasons are, I think this whole discussion should be about what's best for public participation. And so moving it to 6, again, opens up a bigger window for people. Sure, some people can make 4, but does that mean you move it up? And I'm also concerned about the applicants for commission seats. If they see it starts at 4 o'clock, again, most of us are still working, and that's a hardship to have to do. I didn't mention my position on seating, and again, I'm going to what's best for the public and their in their engagement. I don't want to take back something that they've had, but I certainly support seating. And then I think that was it. I wanted to clarify my planning commission position and starting at 5 and commission meetings no earlier than 6. And then seating, I support the ability to seat. So I look to you, Matt. I mean, what's the best way to go? Should we just go back around the horn and everyone starting on that, at that baseline, make the recommendations, or whether they agree or don't agree?
Can I try a motion based
I
on?
would say,
what
I think there may be
everyone said?
support for a motion, so I would.
Okay.
defer to
I would
council.
make a motion then to adopt this resolution with the following changes. Paragraph or subpart 1, that commission meetings are to start at 6 with the exception of the planning commission, which may start at 5. Item number 2, eliminated.
Okay,
Item number,
can you pause there just for a second?
yes,
Councilmember Wasajan, can I say something? The planning commission already meets at 6
I know, but we're saying 5.
if they wish to change it.
If they have
I'm
a
just
big
amending,
item.
I'm amending the resolution that's in front of me.
Okay.
So it's going to be item number 1, 6 o'clock start time with the exception of planning commission, which may start at 5. Item number 2, eliminated. Item number 4, based on what I heard, that seating time is at the discretion of the chair.
I'll second that.
Okay, further discussion?
Just one clarification, if Councilmember Bazagian would agree. The language that's in there now would say, with the exception of the planning commission meetings, which may not start earlier than 5.
That's fine.
Okay,
And then what was your language change to 4?
Well, 4 is written a little convoluted, I think, but I would basically, in essence, however it's accomplished, I would say seating time is at the discretion of the chair. So it does not prohibit seating time, but it leaves it at the discretion of the chair or the mayor.
I think that puts a lot of power in one individual who may already have a bias towards an issue.
Well, the chair can always be overridden by a majority of the body, so it doesn't really give them that much power. So in other words, the chair would always be reflecting the majority opinion in their decision-making. And Matt, I see nodding his head.
Yeah, that's correct. Any ruling of the chair under Rosenberg's can be appealed to the body, then the majority vote controls. So if you had a situation where the chair was a minority, say, worst case minority opposed to a project, and or in favor on one position, and the majority was the other way, they could overrule the chair.
Can we add that, a short clarification? It's at the discretion of the chair, but could be overruled by the majority.
That's
Yes.
acceptable.
Okay.
Yes.
for my motion.
or if I might suggest, why would we even have it at the discretion of the chair? It has been in there all of this time. And in practice, the chair has not allowed seating of time on many occasions. I think it would be a lot cleaner for the public if we just said it was allowed.
I'm taking into account the diversity of opinions that were expressed by the council members. I, for example, would not allow it. But I understand that some people on the council want to allow it. I think this is a very fair, middle of the road compromise.
Councilmember Weintraub.
No, I mean, I think the objective can be met easily by the current motion. I mean, I support the seating of time. I just don't see it being a huge issue. So I think I'm fine supporting the motion. I could see what Peter's saying as well, but I think that if the chair says no and the rest of the commission says yes, it's going to happen. And if the whole entire commission says no, then I'm sure this is going to end up right back to us anyways.
Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro, any last thoughts?
No, I second the amendment.
All right, well, call for the vote of Councilmember Bazagian's motion with the changes.
Councilmember Bosajian,
Aye.
Councilmember Kraut,
Aye.
Councilmember Weintraub,
Aye.
Mayor Potem Shapiro,
Yes.
Mayor Mauer.
Aye.
Carries 5-0.
All right, do any council members wish to take a short break before moving on to the next items? Raise your hand. If not, we're going to move forward. We don't see any hands up. Okay. All right. We're on item number 8, the annual progress report for 2021 regarding the City of Calabasas 2030 General Plan 2014-2021 housing element. And we have with us this evening, Michael Klein presenting. Welcome, Michael.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. If you don't mind, I would like to share my screen. I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation.
It's good to see you, Michael.
Let's see. Hopefully everyone can see my screen now, the PowerPoint.
Yes, it's full screen now.
All right, great. So this evening is a discussion of the city's progress towards its meeting the goals of the housing element. And just to give the City Council a quick background, the housing element is a mandatory element of the city's general plan. In fact, the city's general plan has 11 various elements, including other components such as circulation and safety. In this case, what we're talking about tonight is the housing element. And the purpose of the housing element is to address the jurisdiction's needs towards meeting various housing criteria, needs of housing for the community, as well as also addressing the regional housing needs. The housing element for this region of California is developed and adopted on an 8-year cycle based on what's called a regional housing needs allocation, also known as RHNA, which is established by the state of California. In fact, last year, the City Council approved a housing element update, and that update was necessary to accommodate the 6th cycle RHNA, which runs from 2021 to 2029. That being said, the 5th cycle RHNA spanned 2014 to 2021. So the purpose of this report is to summarize the results of the city's progress towards meeting the housing needs established by the 2014 to 2021 housing element as required by the 5th cycle RHNA planning period. That being said, it is required under state law that the city file an annual progress report. And the purpose of this progress report is to document the city's progress towards implementation of the housing element, the various goals, and of course, meeting the RHNA needs in terms of permitting and building housing within the city. And the housing element is required, or this progress report is required to be submitted to HCD, the California State Department of Housing and Community Development, as well as OPR, which is the Office of Planning and Research, again, another state agency. This report, or the law, also requires that the report be considered at a public meeting before the City Council and to give the public an opportunity to comment on the city's progress. So again, this is really just a look back at the city's progress towards meeting various housing needs. And ultimately the goal is to, by looking back, we can see how we should address certain needs moving forward. Again, the primary purpose of the progress report is to document the city's progress towards meeting various housing goals. And a big component of that is meeting its regional housing needs allocation, as I mentioned earlier, RHNA. This report identifies both the annual progress, so what was accomplished just in 2021, but it will also summarize the closeout of the 5th cycle RHNA period, which again spanned from 2014 to 2021. It's also important to note that the report was prepared on forms provided by HCD and also using definitions provided by HCD. So they have a very set formula as to how we have to identify what's considered very low, low, moderate, and above moderate, as well as accessory dwelling units versus multifamily units and single family units. And I apologize for how small the attachment A looks, but again, these are forms that are supplied by and required to be submitted to HCD using their forms. And I try as hard as I can to make them more readable, but I only have so much control over those documents. Looking at this slide, this identifies the number of housing units that were permitted by the city of Calabasas only in 2021. And the entitlement means it was the housing unit was approved by the planning division, whether it was at a public hearing by the planning commission or at a ministerial level. That's all part of this, but it was just an entitlement, no building permits. This does not reflect building permits that were issued during 2021. And as you can see, there were 13 above moderate units that were permitted by the planning department in 2021 alone. And all 13 of those reflect accessory dwelling units that were permitted within the city. This slide shows the number of units that were actually constructed, and per HCD, constructed means a building permit was issued. This does not reflect certificate of occupancy, so it doesn't necessarily mean that the residential unit was occupied within 2021, but a building permit was issued within 2021 and that's represented in the top graph. So as you can see, there were 7 units that received a building permit or were issued a building permit in 2021 under the moderate category and 2 under the above moderate category for a total of 9 units. And that represents, again, all accessory dwelling units. And per HCD rules and criteria, we can establish, they have a way to establish whether or not it falls within the moderate, above moderate, low, or very low category. And we collect data on each of those permits in order to make that determination when the building permit is issued. Now the graph or the chart at the bottom represents the full 5th cycle planning period spanning from 2014 to 2021. So this effectively represents the closeout of the city's progress towards meeting its RENA allocation during the 5th cycle planning period. And there you can see that on the left-hand side, the assigned RENA to the city was 330 total units. And above that, it identifies the allocation within the various income categories. The number of units that were actually constructed or issued a building permit during this time period was 215 units. A majority of that was related to Paxton, which provided 78 units, as well as Avanti, which included 80 units. So those 2 projects right there provided 158 new units, new residential units within the city. And combined, those 2 projects also provided 12 affordable units in the very low income category. And then from there, the remaining units that were permitted in the city or built within the city are a combination of new single family homes and accessory dwelling units. The column on the right identifies the number of remaining units that were not built during this planning cycle within each one of those income categories. As you can see, there are 0 left in the above moderate category because there were more units built within that income category than allocated within the assigned RENA for that time period. This is just a map showing the location of sites that were identified in the 5th cycle or the 2014 to 2021 housing element for the production of multifamily units. Again, it's important to note that this is a progress report on the previous housing element, and it does not reflect the sites that have been allocated in the current housing element, which was adopted by the city council in October of last year. But again, it just gives an idea of where the city at that time in 2014 decided to allocate an appropriate location for various multifamily projects. And then finally, this is just a chart identifying the number of affordable housing units that are currently available within the city of Calabasas. And under HCD's criteria and the state criteria, we're only identifying those that are officially deed restricted here. So in that case, there's 87 total units. That includes the Canyon Creek project, which has 75 units dedicated for a mixture of very low and moderate income for senior housing, as well as then Avanti and Paxton, which both include a couple of units for affordable housing at very low income category. And those units were provided via the city's inclusionary housing ordinance requirements. So with that, this housing element progress report is informational only. It requires only discussion at a public meeting, but no action is required on part of the city council. And staff recommends that the council take public comment and then receive and file the report. And after this, our next step is to then file the report with HCD and OPR. And I am available for questions.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for the report. Madam Clerk, are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this item?
I do not see any hands, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I will go to my colleagues, and I see Councilmember Bazagian.
Couple comments and one question. My comment is basically, my comments are about, I'm continue to be distressed that the state makes all these additional housing requirements and density requirements. But it seems to me that very few of these bills have an affordable housing component attached to them. SB 9 and 10, which I opposed, nonetheless, they passed, but there's no housing, there's no affordable housing component. So all they're doing is requiring additional housing without making any requirement that they make it affordable. And the amount of increases in inflation in housing, it just seems to me that eventually younger people are not going to be able to afford to buy houses, and people are going to be priced out of homes unless it's already within their families, thus creating a greater economic disparity. My question, Matt, maybe you would know this. Is there anything on the horizon in the legislature this year to address affordability over just simply raw numbers of units?
Nothing comes to mind immediately on what's pending at the legislature. The focus this year on the housing bills so far has been the sheer numbers of units is better model. There's not been much of a focus on affordable housing from what I've seen so far. Although there's still time, we often see the more substantial bills come in the June timeframe as part of the budget.
That was my impression as well. And it's a shame, really. It's a shame that the legislature doesn't do that for people. The other question I have, Michael Klein, it's for you. On one of the screens that said affordable housing, you showed different dates there, that one. I'm assuming that the reason the expiration dates are so disparate between Avanti and Paxton versus Canyon Creek is because the law changed from a 30-year expiration to a 55-year expiration?
The law did change. Yeah, the law did change, although ironically at the time, Canyon Creek, the law was still only 30 years, but that project approval, maybe it was because of the type of other incentives that they were using, had a 55-year time limit. But moving forward, any new project would have a minimum of a 55-year time limit.
I had thought actually it was because Avanti and Paxton, although they took a lot longer to build, were entitled before under the old 30-year rule.
No, they were entitled after, but the rule was still 30 years at that time. The rule changed, Matt would be able to correct me, but sometime after 2018, I think.
So
I believe it was 2020 when that switch flipped in.
Okay, so I
January 1st, 2020.
So the question I have, Matt, is, we've noticed in two of our apartment complexes, Malibu Canyon Apartments, which was entitled by the county, so it wasn't really our doing, and the Avalon Bay, which also was entitled under the county. Can we in the future require, is it legally permissible if we give some level of consideration in another direction to say, look, we don't want an expiration date on these low income housing, because all that does is create an extra burden on us to create additional affordable units because you've now taken these units and eliminated them and displaced people.
Yes, if we do it by contract with sufficient incentive for the developer to agree. The 3 projects on the screen, Avanti and Paxton, are by state law under density bonus projects. Canyon Creek was, I believe, also not density bonus and city funding through the bond program, hence the longer period. For the next apartment complex, if we use the city housing fund or other city available funds and more or less bought permanent affordability, then that could be done. The ability to impose it by fiat, though, is limited.
Okay, well, I would like the city attorney and staff to, obviously, I can't direct, anything be done, but I'd like them to at least inform us as each project comes forward, whether or not that's a possibility, because I would be highly interested in not having expiration dates that just create double the problem we had in the first place. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, do any other members of the council wish to speak? I don't see any hands up. Oh, there goes one. There we go. Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro.
Thank you very much. And thank you for this report and also my colleagues' questions. Quick question for you, and maybe this is covered and but what happened or how do we account for the loss of units, and I consider them losses, for both the very low and low income related to what was on our books for the Resnick property, as we called it before, and the Avalon with the very low income units that we lost and that reverted to moderate or high income units. How do we account for that?
So my understanding is that because the city attempted to preserve those units, although, and by city, there was staff engagement with the property owner to find a way to preserve those units. And the property owner went the route that they chose, which ultimately was not successful. That was not the city's fault or the city's action that prevented the preservation of those units. And therefore, we followed the requirements of our fifth cycle housing element, and therefore there's no penalty to the city. So those units unfortunately drop out, but there's no penalty on the city's end to replace those units in the sixth cycle. Now, on the converse side, if the city didn't make any attempt and didn't follow the parameters established by its fifth cycle housing element, then we would have been subject to a penalty, whether that was by the state attorney general or as going into the sixth cycle, they added that to our reallocation, but that was not the case.
Okay, so that the answer is it will not affect us in the sixth cycle going forward as well.
Correct.
Okay, and again, I will hopefully join my colleagues in saying that everything we can do to encourage projects such as Canyon Creek or others, which are very low income, and in that case was a multiple source funding, not necessarily our own income, but provided that income and low income units for seniors as well is something I'd like to see us look at going forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Weintraub.
So funny, I had the exact same question, so I don't need to ask it anymore.
Okay, all right, I have a few questions. I'm going to start on page 7. I'll read, there's just a couple categories that I'm interested in. A little bit more information. You're right that they don't leave you very much room to write anything. First of all, our ADUs, second units that are built on properties. How did we publicize that? And are we still, because to me, that is the greatest source for affordable and low income housing.
Well, we have two ways. I mean, right now, the way we're publicizing it is both on the planning webpage and also on the building and safety website. So the building and safety department has put together a really good comprehensive sort of cheat sheet to allow homeowners and contractors to understand what their rights are under the ADU laws, what they can build, and the process in order to build it. Ever since the state changed the ADU processing requirements at the planning level, we saw a significant change in increase in the number of accessory dwelling units that were submitted to the city. So prior to the changes that occurred in 2019, the city didn't see that many accessory dwelling units submitted. And then after that, we started seeing anywhere from 12 to 15 per year getting submitted and approved by the planning department. Moving forward, and part of it in our 2014 to 2021 housing element, we identified ADUs as a good option, but there wasn't an emphasis on it. Moving forward into our 6th cycle housing element, we have placed a greater emphasis on promoting accessory dwelling units. And there are a handful of ideas that we have that we want to explore. Some cities have adopted what's called an off-the-shelf accessory dwelling unit program, where they have maybe a local architect or architects prepare plans that could then be easily adopted or utilized by a homeowner, rather than having to go and hire their own architect or engineer, which can be very costly. These plans are effectively approved at the city level, and so it's something that could be used very easily or more easily by a homeowner to speed up and lower the cost of building an accessory dwelling unit from a permitting standpoint. So that's one option. Looking at ways to make it easier to do a garage conversion, again, to promote both ease within the permitting and also a lower cost at an engineering standpoint. So these are things that we want to explore, and we have built them into our 6th cycle housing element to look at being able to roll out over the next couple of years.
That all sounds good, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for. I mean, that's the content and the information. I was looking how we promote it. What are we doing social media wise? What are we doing for a town hall meeting on this topic, or multiple, or presenting to HOAs, or just really a comprehensive outreach campaign? And so I'd ask Kendon, maybe you could tell me, or not tonight, obviously, but what we have done as far as specific outreach. Michael's described really good tools for understanding the process, and even using some of them in converting, but I'm not hearing how that information is getting out to the public. So I would ask staff to look at that. What do you?
Well, yeah, and I can tell you that over the planning period that this report covers, there has been no actual outreach from that standpoint.
Okay,
We've updated our website,
Yeah.
and we've provided the forms to make it easier for people to understand, but there's been no active outreach. And if that's something that the council wants us to do, then I think that's a great idea, and I'm happy to work with our
I
communications
think it's our
department.
only option to start meeting and increasing the numbers in affordable and low income. So Kendon, is that something that staff can do, actually just put together a plan? And if we don't have the abilities in-house to hire a consultant who does, can put together a public education plan that's sustainable, that's just not a one-off, but that we could pull it out once a year as we have new people in the community, and really dedicate ourselves to that.
Yes, Mayor, we will look at that. Now, Michael, one thing maybe to clarify though, not all ADUs are affordable, correct? They're not meeting that requirement. And so we can promote ADUs, but I think we also understand that many of the ADUs coming in.
I understand that. And what I would do is promote affordable ADUs. Yes, they can build what they want, but the piece I would like to see them build is the affordable, if we can steer them that direction. I have a few more comments, but I see my colleagues' hands up. I guess I'll pause because I didn't see them earlier, or did you? Actually, I'm just going to keep going because I want to get through my list here. The commercial industrial impact fee, providing developers with information on options and incentives for fulfilled inclusionary requirements, or for expenditure of in lieu fees. I guess, what are we doing there? Is this where we're telling them they don't have to build affordable? They can, make not a donation, but put funds towards the in lieu mitigation project, or is this coming up with mitigation projects?
This is specifically for commercial and industrial projects,
Right.
not residential projects. So under the city's inclusionary housing ordinance, a residential project that includes 5 or more units is required to either provide affordable housing on site or pay an in lieu fee. And the in lieu fee is quite high. So it incentivizes the residential developer to provide the units on as part of their project. In addition to that, one of our development impact fees for commercial projects is the requirement for them to also provide an in lieu fee based on the size of the project. So
Okay.
a auto dealership, for example, is not required to actually build affordable housing on their property, on their project, because you wouldn't want that at an auto dealership, but they are required to pay into an in lieu fee, and then that money gets put into the housing trust fund. That's where some of the money came from in order to fund the Canyon Creek project.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. I'll go to senior housing opportunities. The objective is to actively pursue senior housing opportunities and housing support services, consult with senior housing and gerontology experts to assist in adequately planning for the community's senior citizens. And we did a terrific job back in building the senior center. And we had a gerontologist at the beginning of that process to help us with some of the layout. It opened in 2016, but we have not had a gerontologist consultant, to my knowledge, since then. Although you note it completed, we haven't had a gerontologist consult on any support services or housing, for as far as I know. So why do you feel that's closed? It seems to me we have.
Well, the goal under the housing element was fairly vague. So we have effectively completed it, although it didn't necessarily span the entire planning period, but by virtue of the accomplishment or the project that was already completed in 2016, we have met that requirement of the 5th cycle housing element. Again, moving forward in the 6th cycle, we will have to address that and continue to find ways to meet that. One of our goals, again, is to find a affordable housing project that is also for seniors. And on a project like that, that would be a good opportunity to work with that developer to bring on a consultant on board within that field to address the needs of that clientele.
So we'll see that kind of activity in the next round.
If we can get another senior housing project, which hopefully we will, and I've mentioned this in some previous meetings, we are working on a grant with HCD that we're hoping will attract those types of projects.
Yeah, that would be great. And then lastly, on this senior topic was the overlay zone on Calabasas Road. That wasn't here. That obviously, since this cycle's been completed, will be something we'll be actively looking at, some of those commercial properties to become senior housing.
Correct, because this particular progress report is for everything that happened prior to basically from 2014 to 2021. The AHO, affordable housing overlay zone, did not exist during that housing element. So there was nothing to report on that component, but moving forward, then yes, the goal is to be able to use the affordable housing overlay to incentivize either more affordable housing and affordable housing for seniors, again, if there's a project that meets those specifications and criteria.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to it. And then lastly is housing opportunities of persons living with disabilities. And frankly, I don't think we've made any progress on this ever, but I'm going to read it so the public understands the sentence. work in cooperation with and it's North Los Angeles County Regional Center. This is a state agency for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to publicize information on available resources for housing and services, pursue state and federal funds available for supportive housing and services in future affordable housing. Here's another project that if we ever got a grant writer, they could look into this. I don't think we've ever done anything. And the sad thing is that as renowned as the Las Virgenes Unified School District is for its athletics and its academic achievers and a whole range, its theatrical and music programs, everything, they are also renowned for neurodivergent or not typical students starting at Buttercup in preschool, going through elementary school, middle school, high school, hopefully onto vocational training and finding a partner and wanting to live independently, wanting the same things we have, a purpose, getting up in the morning, a paycheck, and a family. And we have failed these children in our community who are come here for the best without any effort, as far as I can see. And here it says evaluation initiated. What does that mean?
Well, you're right. We have not, there have been no projects that have been approved within the city of Calabasas that on a large scale.
Not
that
only not
accommodate-
approved, initiated or pursued.
Well, what I was going to get at is that we have evaluated and we looked at our municipal code to make sure that there were no roadblocks in terms of accommodating members with disabilities or residents with disabilities. And so there are certain key areas within the municipal code that we had to adjust and make change to make sure that we are accommodating that. So one example is residential care facilities with 6 or fewer clients are a permitted use within residential zoning districts. And the purpose of that is to allow those facilities within those neighborhoods. And oftentimes those facilities can provide services for people with disabilities. And we also we added in our municipal code, I'm blanking on the specific name, a special accommodation section. So it allows a resident to make adjustments to their residential unit or even a commercial unit to accommodate people with disabilities without having to go through a variance process necessarily. So it allows for flexibility. If someone needs to add an elevator to their property or extra set of a ramp up to their property that would otherwise not meet our zoning code requirement in terms of lot coverage or height limit or setbacks, the special accommodation section of our municipal code allows for them to go through a ministerial process without having to go through a public hearing. So
Yeah,
there are
and
certain areas within our code that we looked at to address it, but you are right.
Michael, that's not what I'm talking about. That's general disability. And you've cited it here, the things we've done, ramps, elevators, and complying with state and federal law. What I'm talking about specifically is working with the North Los Angeles County Regional Center as directed to, as required to. And we just haven't done anything. And I don't blame you for sure. I blame ourselves and I blame society for really not caring. So those are my comments. And I'd like to ask the city manager to add grant writing, pursuing state and federal funds. I mean, it's right here. There's no reason why we couldn't have done this. Working with the regional centers for the grant writer, should we get one. All right. Thank you, Michael. Councilmember Kraut.
Thank you. Michael, I wanted to circle back to the ADUs that Mayor Maurer brought up. If you could help me out, the report shows 7 moderate and 2 above moderate units for the ADUs that were constructed. How are those classified and what makes them, what would it take to get them classified as low or very low income units?
Under HDD rules, there are 2 ways that they can be classified. The first way is if they happen to be deed restricted and the way that they would end up becoming deed restricted or somehow restricted by a condition of approval is if they receive funding from the city. So we do have within our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we do have money for lower income homeowners to use to build an accessory dwelling unit. And in those circumstances, those dwelling units would be restricted to lower income tenants. And so that's one way it's officially restricted either through a deed or through the conditions of approval. The other way is collecting data from the property owner who's building the ADU. So it is just a stamp in time. And it's asking the homeowner what their intent is, how they intend to rent it out. Sometimes they'll tell us, well, we're just going to rent it out for $800 a month just to cover some additional expenses. And so we'll record that information. Or if they happen to tell us that it's going to be provided to a family member at no cost, then technically under HCD's rules, if that would be considered either a low, very low or moderate unit because it is being rented out under the income limits. And if they don't provide us with that data, then we just classify it as above moderate. And we'll also monitor Zillow and various real estate websites to see what they end up listing in that. So I've seen 2-bedroom ADUs listed at $2,400, $2,500 a month. That would be a market rate unit.
And obviously the reason that we're digging into this topic is we are required by RENA to build a certain number of low and very low income units that we just have a very difficult time satisfying here in Calabasas because with the cost of land and everything else around us, Calabasas is not an economical place to be building low and very low income units. So we have to find creative ways of getting there. You mentioned some possibilities of having ready-made plans available to save homeowners the time and expense of hiring an architect. If we were to provide that, could we not deed restrict the units in compensation for that, expediency?
It's a good idea. I would make sure we run it by the city attorney before we did that, just to make sure we're not violating any housing regulations. But yeah, that would be one thing to look at.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one real quick. So if it was a voluntary program that people could choose to take advantage of or not, then we could have a contract that provides in return for the free architecture and the significant cost savings there, we would require deed restrictions for some specified period of time. So if it was structured right, it would be legal.
Okay. And then the last question regarding all of this is, how about the square footage of units? What are the sizes of the ones that were built? I can't imagine a 200 square foot ADU going for moderate rates, but I can't imagine a 1,200 square foot rate unit going for very low rates. So is there a correlation there?
Well, the average accessory dwelling unit, a lot of the accessory dwelling units are detached, and when they build a detached unit, I'd say the average is somewhere in the ballpark of 800 to 1,200 square feet. And they try and get either a very nice size 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom unit. The smaller accessory dwelling units, and by the way, a JADU does count. So this doesn't, the number that I said, out of these 9, 1 or 2 of them might be a JADU. The JADU would definitely be smaller in the 200 to 400 square foot range. And you're right, those would likely, usually a JADU would likely be for a family member because they also have internal access to a house. So that's what we've seen as a common practice.
So have we had any JADUs been built here in Calabasas?
We have, yes.
And those must have been classified then as low or very low, no?
Off the top of my head, I don't want to commit to it, but I believe they were all in one of those categories.
So maybe it's something we'll follow up on later, but I think, this is a report of what has been done, but I think it's also an opportunity to learn from what has been done in how we can't work a little harder to satisfy our arena requirements. when we look at the square footage, garage conversions are definitely in the, 300 to 400 square foot tops range, because that's how big a garage is, right? And junior ADUs obviously should be falling into that lower, very low income, unless it's, a bedroom in a 10,000 square foot mansion with house privileges, maybe. But junior ADUs for the most part should be qualifying for lower, very low income. And we need to really figure out how to identify those a little bit better in the next reporting cycle.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you're right, that really I think the goal of the progress report is to see what we did and figure out how we can improve on things moving forward. So with that, with the other issue raised by Mayor Mauer, in terms of working with the regional center, those are things that we could definitely improve upon, and that's what we should look at moving forward.
Thank you, Michael.
Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro, you had your hand up earlier. Did you have any comments?
I think they've all been covered. Mine were going to be some clarifications on the ADUs and the moderate to above moderate at this point.
All righty. All right, with that, thank you very much, Michael. I know that's a lot of work put into just a tiny few sentences, years and years worth of work. Appreciate it. And thank you for acknowledging some of the areas that we could do more on. And I'd be happy to help in any way, especially with the regional center. All right, with that, we're gonna, there's no action. We're going to just receive and file this item. And we're going to take a quick 10-minute break and return at 9:19. Thank you. 10:21 or 9:21.
Still here?
David, I can't hear you. Can you speak up? Let me just try your mic.
I've been
Oh, there
here
you are.
for 3 minutes. I'm waiting. Can't see, I don't see you guys yet.
You don't see us?
Maybe it's my screen. There we are.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we back on?
Ready when you are, Madam Mayor. We're live.
Okay. All right, we are going. We're going on to item number 10, City Council consideration of council liaisons, external. I'm sorry, item number 9, mid-year budget update for fiscal year 2021-2022 and adoption of resolution number 2022-1776, appropriation of funds. And tonight's presentation is by Ron Allers. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you, Mayor Maurer. I'm going to share my screen so that we can look at the presentation. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, it's full screen.
Great, thank you. So tonight we're going to discuss our mid-year budget report for this current fiscal year, which we are now a little over 8 months into. First up is our general fund, which is what we mainly focus on every year. So you see here on the screen, the top portion is major revenues for the city. We have 4 years, complete years of actuals, starting with actuals 2017-18 through actuals 2020-21. I show the budget for 21-22 on the right-hand side of the screen, the actuals as of December 31st, 2021. So that is 6 months or half of the fiscal year. And then my proposed revision to the revenue so you can see the differences. If you look down towards more the bottom of the screen, you'll see that we started off the general fund budget for 21-22 at roughly $23.7 million. We have collected for the first 6 months, 7.7 million. And we estimate we'll finish up with 24.3 million. So approximately $600,000 more than what we had estimated. If you look on the far right, starting at the top with property tax, you'll see that property tax estimate is coming in slightly higher at 4.2 million. Our sales tax estimate, which will be the next slide, showing a dramatic increase up to 7.5 million. That is mainly due to our car dealerships, which include leasing within the city. They've had very, very robust sales for the last year plus, actually, but I'll show you those charts. No changes in franchise fees for the TV or for Edison. Our TOT, which is the transient occupancy tax or the hotel bed tax, you'll see is increased from $1.25 million up to 1.6 million. And we just got January and that continues to increase. So I anticipate that could maybe be $1.7 million or $1.8 million at this point. When I did this report a couple of weeks ago, the $1.6 million was good, but now we've received all of January numbers and it's looking on the positive side. So all that's good. Our UUT, utility users tax for electric and gas, have increased. Our phone is going down as people move away so much from landlines and traditional phone services. So that is decreased. Building fees, slight decrease. VLF stands for vehicle license fee. That is estimated at a slight decrease down to $2,775,000 from the estimate of 2.8. Our cost plan, I just equalized out with last year. And again, we're at the 24.3 million. You'll see our expenses are at 23.4 million. So that gives us a revised income for the general fund, or a positive change of 900,000 in our general fund.
Hey, Ron. Oh,
Yep.
there you go. Okay.
So sales tax. So what we have here is we have 5.5 years of actual sales tax broken up by quarter, each quarter of the fiscal year. I'll draw your attention to these two blue bars that are on the far right. You'll see that both blue bars are significantly higher than their predecessors, than the prior 4 years. And then that continued to show up in these green bars for the first quarter and second quarter of the fiscal year being significantly higher. So this is the last 4 quarters, or the last 1 year of sales tax revenue that the city has received, has been a lot larger than the prior year's actual. Again, like I mentioned previously, mainly due to auto sales, auto leasing, auto transportation within the city. Going on to our expense changes that you'll see in the resolution, we have added 1 full-time position to the city. This is actually an upgrade, if you will, of a part-time position. Our emergency services manager moving from part-time to full-time. So our total authorized full-time position is now 77 instead of 76. We are requesting $300,000 for a new financial system. Our current financial system, known as Fund Balance, is over 20 years old. And we will be coming to the city council before June 30th to present a contract to award that to a different financial software package. And we're estimating that the total cost to convert from our old system to a new system to be about $300,000, which would also include new computers, PCs, new other ancillary software that needs the support for this new financial system. The new financial system will be state-of-the-art and will meet our needs. It could meet our needs for the next 20 years. Hopefully we don't take it that long, or if the new software continues to stay current with technology, then that's a good thing. Our current financial software is nowhere near up to date on technology. What we're also adding to the budget is $13,000 for fencing at Grape Albert Park, $40,000 to implement a new recreation software called Civic Plus for our recreation department. So that's the general fund expense changes that we're asking for. Other funds that are not general fund, one is our transit fund. These sources of money come from the half-cent sales tax that was voted on 4 times by the citizens of LA County, known as Prop A and Prop C, Measure M and Measure R. We're asking for 3 changes in our transit fund, $40,000 for an increase to our transit admin, $125,000 for an increase for a dollar ride, and $27,000 for vehicle maintenance. In our capital improvement fund, we're asking for changes to 5 different projects. One is an increase of $50,000 for stormwater and water quality improvement. That source of funding is the general fund. We are seeing a $2 million decrease. This is my error. When I had the city council approve the budget for last year, I had placed the $2 million for the Mulholland project into the wrong Mulholland project. I put it into the Mulholland shoulder safety. So we're decreasing that by 2 million and increasing the Mulholland gap closure by 3.3 million. That will make this project whole. There is no changes to the contract. Council already approved the contract. We're not increasing the contract amount or anything. All we're doing is catching up the budget, if you will, with the actual signed contract and the anticipated expenses for the work going on at Mulholland. So that's so if you want to think of it as new money, it's really $1.3 million in new money because of the $2 million decrease from my error, putting that dollar amount into the wrong project. And then 2 more projects in our capital improvement fund, 800,000 for Mulholland Highway. That's from second project on Mulholland from Old Topanga East to West section. Source of funding is Measure M, so not general fund. And then 60,000 for the roof replacement at the community center. Source of funding is originally going to be the general fund. We're, as council is aware, there has been money approved in the federal budget of $1 million to help out with this project, as well as we are looking at hopefully securing some other money either from LA County or from other sources. So original source of funding is going to be a general fund. As we receive these monies from these other grants, then we will replace the general fund money with that grant money. But the initial source where it's going to be outlaid is the general fund. So this 60,000 is just for the consultant cost as we look to replace the roof at the community center. And then a couple more changes in our grant fund, again, not general fund. We have received a grant from the state dealing with enforcement of tobacco regulations within the city. So that's 159,207. And so we are recognizing the revenue in this grant fund and also asking for an appropriation to spend that money on these enforcement regulations. So that's part staff time. It's also, it's mainly part staff time, but it could be also other enforcement activities with other agencies as well, but it's mainly staff. The resolution that you have in front of you is broken up into 3 parts. So this budget amendment, the first part is the fund allocation. So you see there all the different funds that we just went through: the general fund, transit funds, capital improvement fund, the grant fund. You'll see that allocation going up or down depending on if we're using reserves or not using reserves. Estimated revenues is the second section. So those are the changes that I went through with the general fund mainly, but also transfers in and transfers out between capital and the other funds. So, and then the last part is the actual appropriation of the expenses of 5.3 million. And that's across all these different funds that are listed here. So this budget amendment is council approving all these accounting changes that I just went through, explaining for the general fund and the projects and so forth. It's just doing all the accounting and making sure all the accounting's right, and council approves the resolution. I believe that is it. And I am available to answer any questions that the council may have regarding the mid-year report and the budget amendment. General fund is looking good. We should end up in the positive like we did last year. So all things are looking up. I will quit sharing my screen if you want, and then we can go from there.
I'm going to start with comments from the public.
Madam Mayor, I don't see any hands up.
Okay, can you remind the public procedures for commenting, please?
If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand. If you're on the phone, please press *9 to speak, and *6 to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. I see Councilmember Kraut's hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Just a few different things. I'll try to just keep them separate here. And regarding the community center and the roof, I just want to remind council here that we have a resolution from the JPA that allows the city of Calabasas to proceed with the roof repairs and then seek reimbursement from grants and other funds. So that is covered in the JPA agreement that we have now. And that money, as you've just heard, is available to us. So although we'll be outlaying that 60,000, that money should be coming back to us very quickly. On the topic of the software for finances, our budget committee has discussed this a couple of times. The software for the accounting department is quite antiquated and requires additional steps and time that could be greatly saved by new software. which would also allow us a little more flexibility in the way that reports are presented. So the budget committee is in favor of supporting the $300,000 outlay for financial software there. And then the last thing, Ron, if I could ask you, the Mulholland projects, I'm still confused. We're taking 2 million out of one, we're adding 3.3 million to another, we got 800,000 in a third. What's the plain language explanation of what's going on here? Are we already over budget? Did we just not have the right numbers in when we did this? What's the high level answer here?
You are correct, Councilmember Kraut. So we did not exactly have the right numbers in the budget when this was adopted last June. So net effect, $1.3 million increase in the budget for the work that's currently being done on Mulholland that you see by the high school. The source of funding for this is Measure M. So this is the transit funds that the city has, that the city receives from LA County. So it's not the general fund. The 800,000 is a different project also on Mulholland from Old Topanga East to the west section. And that is 800,000 that was not in the budget, that was adopted last June, but needs to be included in the budget because we're actually looking to start that project in the next 2 months to 3 months. And so the council will be looking at, I believe, a contract coming soon. So we need to appropriate the money so that I'll slow down. We need to appropriate the money now so that when council approves the contract, the money is sitting there in the budget. And once again, the source of funding is Measure M, which is LA County sales tax, not the general fund.
Okay, and so the 3.3 million is what was already approved. It just was not allocated in the budget at that number.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I needed, Ron. Thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro.
Just briefly, the points were already made by Peter, and we met a couple times with Ron to go over these items in the budget. And I'm very pleased to see the increased revenue putting us in a positive rather than in the red as was anticipated. So that was important for us to present and have for council again in June, a balanced budget or positive budget. That's something we all want going forward. We're very pleased with that. And for triple clarification, no funds for the Mulholland projects, Mulholland Highway Improvement, however they are listed, are coming out of the general fund. Those are all Measure M funds that we will be reimbursed for, correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Weintraub.
Just a super quick question, and thanks to the budget subcommittee, Ron and Kindon. But the software for the community services department, what is that?
I think if we would let Erica in, she can do a much better job than I can on answering that question. If Mara, you can let Erica in.
I'm sure it's to improve some antiquated software, but I just was interested to hear.
Yes.
Okay, she should be moving in. There she is.
Erica, you have to unmute yourself.
I am unmuted, yes. Good evening. So Alicia, the software is upgrading from the current ActiveNet system that we have. We got a community development block grant through the Los Angeles County Development Authority to enhance online usage of our software system for seniors and in the community. So we are moving forward with that and implementing a new and hopefully user-friendly, which it seems great. So that's basically what we're doing there.
That's great. And also it's not from the general fund as well.
It is not. It's a grant. It'll be reimbursed.
That's fabulous. Good work.
Thank you.
All right. I don't see any more council hands up. And are there any members of the public, Maury?
There are none, Madam Mayor.
Okay. I found this report very difficult to read, and the fact that corrections are still happening at the end is a little worrisome. And I fully expected that we were going to have a type of public workshop that would break down the information in an understandable manner. And yes, those slides helped. But the density and the readability of what was attached, I don't know if that's our old software and all we can do. I really wanted to see things easily by department, and it was just page after page. I don't know what I expected, but what I really did expect was a public workshop with a easier to understand presentation. And we had that planned, and that's why we canceled a meeting and kind of moved things around. So I guess my question is this is our mid review. So what is the plan public engagement wise for next fiscal years and upcoming budgets reviews? Kendon, I guess that question's for you, since you and I worked on this and came up with a date that we were going to do a budget workshop.
Yeah, correct, Mayor. So we've added, as the council is aware, we've added several extra meetings into the year for this very purpose of having opportunities with the strategic plan, the budget workshops. Mayor, we'll be meeting with the budget subcommittee to discuss some ideas about public engagement. Please email me, the rest of the council separately, just with some ideas that you have as well, so that we can discuss those with the budget subcommittee.
What did you want us to email you?
Just ideas that you have on how to engage the public.
Oh, I think we have a department for that, don't we?
Excuse, for in what way, the finance department, or I'm
No,
sorry?
I thought that kind of, I mean, if we don't know how to do it, get a consultant to do it, but it's something that we had planned as of last year and it didn't happen. I don't know why there were delays, but I thought it was your idea to do these public workshops, that we weren't doing the budgetary process all inclusive and in a transparent manner that allowed enough time for public review. So we added a meeting. I mean, I'll be happy to look up how other cities include the public in this decision-making process if I need to.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So if the council remembers, last year, we started the whole budget process late, partly because of my hiring. So I think the decision was made by the council to wait until my placement and then start that budget process. That pushed things a month and a half, maybe even more back. And so we didn't have the opportunity to have the meetings that we have. I guess, Mayor, what I'm asking for from the council is, if there's certain expectations or thoughts of what you hope to see, please share those with us. There's quite a few different ways that the city councils and cities engage the public in the budget process. What I'm asking from you is perhaps what your expectations are in that.
And I'd ask, actually, what did you envision when we set aside a separate meeting for a public workshop? This was earlier in the year.
Part of that we just haven't discussed with the budget subcommittee, Mayor.
Okay, so it came and went without. Okay.
No, Mayor. So Mayor, this meeting was not. So this was a setup. Our meeting next week was a special meeting. We've moved some just regular items to that.
Right.
This item tonight is a report from last fiscal year and was not intended to be a public workshop on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm not sure I understand, but and this evening, our action is, unless there's any other council comments, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move that.
In a second?
Second it.
So, oh,
And Madam Mayor, Madam Clerk, can you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Bosajian,
Aye.
Councilmember Kraut,
Aye.
Councilmember Weintraub,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro,
Yes.
Mayor Mauer.
Yes.
Carries, Madam Mayor.
And I would encourage all council members to provide suggestions on how the public can get engaged in the budgetary process. All right, item number 10, City Council consideration of council liaison external committee appointments. Who's going to take the lead on that? Mari, I'm not sure who you.
All right, do you want to do this one?
Madam Mayor, normally is the mayor who takes the lead and asks the council whether they wish to switch on any.
Okay, I don't see it in my. All right, so there is the list in front of us. I don't know if you want to put it up on the screen, Mari, for the public to see what we're talking about. And I guess what we could do is just go from the top to the bottom. There are some changes that have been called out, but just to make sure we don't miss any. Is everyone okay with that? I'll start with the budget task force is, I'll just read the last name, Shapiro and Kraut. Any changes? Just raise your hand if you have a change or a comment or a recommendation. Commission procedures, council protocols task force, that's Bazagian and Mauer. And we have been on this task force for quite a while and we haven't. We keep saying we're going to meet, James. I don't know if anyone is interested in taking my spot. I'm happy to stay on it, but I apologize for not being more productive.
Maybe this year we could actually meet during the council break, the month we're break.
That's a
Yeah,
great
July.
idea. Let's do that, July. And we're looking for, I think the protocols have been sent out to all council members, but Mari, would you mind resending that? And if everyone could take another look and give us any of your comments on things you'd like to add, change, delete, etc. Maybe by, how about, we could set up a date maybe to get those by. All right, the next one is the Economic Development Task Force, and that is Kraut and Weintraub. Any changes to that one? All right. Public Safety Emergency Preparedness Task Force, Shapiro and Weintraub. Any changes, comments? And I don't have a full screen of everybody. I'm gonna try and change that. So if I miss you, be sure and just yell out. Okay, next is Open Space Annexations Task Force, Bazaji and Mauer. No hands. School Site Task Force, Shapiro Weintraub. No hands. Homeless Task Force, Weintraub Kraut. No hands. Wireless Service Task Force, Weintraub Shapiro. Redistricting Committee Task Force has ended. Sustainability Task Force, Mauer Shapiro. Agora Hills Calabasas Community Center JPA Board, Bazaji and Kraut.
Can you change the screen?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, thank you.
Calabasas Chamber of Commerce, Bazaji and Kraut. California Contract Cities, Bazaji and Kraut.
I'll speak up there. I am able to stay on board with that, but I've actually been on the Contract Cities and the League of California Cities, and I'm much more prefer the latter. So if anybody does want a space on the California Contract Cities Association, I would be okay giving that up. And if not, I will stay in there with James.
I'll take that one if no one else is interested. Thank you. Any other comments on that? All right, California JPA, that's Bazajian and Mauer as the alternate. Clean Power Alliance, Mauer, Shapiro as the alternate, and McConville as the alternate. Headwaters Corner, Board of Directors, that's Weintraub and Kraut.
I wanted to comment on that one, which has
Yes.
come to no surprise to Peter. If anyone else is interested in that one, I'm happy to pass it off. Peter does a fabulous job. Like, we are fully represented by Peter. I just do not, I have a lot of frustrations with it. I think we might be better served by somebody else, or Peter really like carries us on that one. I share my frustrations on every call, but if anyone else wants to step in.
Alicia, can you refresh my memory? Is that one where you are both sitting on the board, or is there one alternate?
No, we're both sitting on the board.
So you need two?
I don't know why we need to, but that's what it allows for.
I think that's what the designation is, James. Is
Yes,
two.
no, I think it's written in the agreement, but I couldn't remember whether it was an alternate or not.
As I said, we're really well served by Peter. I share frustrations, but he really does a good job on that one.
Yeah, I served on that for many, many, many years, and it was frustrating.
Yeah,
And I remember when we were,
sell it well to me.
what's that?
You did not sell it well.
Well, you know what? I thought it was me. I thought I was just ineffective. And I felt like it when people would point at the headwaters and say, what's going on there? There's nothing going on there. And I'm like, well, we're trying.
Well, it's not our fault. There's a lot of issues that Peter and I continue to point out. We've spoken with staff and Kindon and Matt. So it's something that needs to be addressed. I mean, hopefully progress will happen. If anyone else wants to take a stab at it, guess there's no takers. So I'll do it for one more year. But after that.
Well, it sounds like you're actually doing a good job if you're pointing out the issues and challenges. And
no, not, I mean, truthfully, I don't know. I think Peter and I just need to have a meeting with staff.
Does it have to be a council member?
I don't know the answer.
I think
If it doesn't, then maybe we could designate a staff member if she doesn't want to do it.
It's not that I don't want to do it. It's just, you know what? We have to figure it out, because you're saying, I mean, you and Fred were on it for many years. Now Peter and I are on it.
And of those many years, there was a long period where we were very productive. It was really exciting. We had Woody Smeck, who is the superintendent of the National Park Services, at the helm. And it was fun and productive and exciting.
But nothing's happened to the site. That's the problem.
No, it was set up as an education. There were children that came.
Peter and I, right. But now, I mean,
there were classes on weekends. It was very vital.
No, since the fire I'm talking about.
Yes.
We're stretched very thin. Kendon, can you look up the agreement and see if we can substitute a staff member?
Yes, Councilmember, we'll look at that. I don't have that in front of me right now, but we'll look to see if we can substitute. Just for the council's information on this, we have started talking with the tree people of revising the contract or the agreement. So this would allow us to change that, regardless of what it says now, to have one council member represented and or staff on that. So we'll be looking at that.
Okay. All right. So at this point, we'll leave it as is, it sounds like, or okay. All right. League of California Cities. And that's Bezagian and Kraut. Any comments? We know that that's not going to change for Peter. LA Selection Committee, that's me. LA County West Vector and Vector-Borne Disease Control District, Bezagian. Who wants that one? Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy Advisory Board, that's me. SCAG, that's Shapiro. the Valley Economic Alliance, Shapiro, and VICA, Shapiro.
Madam Mayor, you miss COG.
Where is that?
Last version is Malibu Council of Governments.
Okay. There,
After Headwaters Corner.
yes, there it is. And that is Weintraub and Shapiro.
And I'm basically an alternate on that. I mean, I believe if that's correct.
Yes, you are. I would love to be it if that's what you were going to say next, but if not, you can.
No, I've been waiting to be on it.
Oh, you
waiting.
have? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Want
right.
to be on it, but
Oh, okay.
Alicia does a great job.
Okay.
One meeting I never miss, so.
Yeah. Well, I have some comments about the COG at some point. Just communication and maybe council members getting emails, but I'll go through Kendon about that. Okay, that was the entire list unless anyone has any second thoughts, any comments on this.
One more clarification. I think on the community center JPA, I am an alternate. Is that right, James?
For now, you are, yes.
Okay.
For now, that sounds ominous.
Well, no, if the JP agreements change, that would change.
Okay.
All right. So
I
we'll.
thought you were
put
going to give me your seat there.
No,
We'll note
not
that
quite.
as for alternate.
I've moved to ratify these appointments if that's.
Wait,
what you're
before
asking.
you do that, can I don't know that I went to the public. If there's any
Oh.
members of the public wishing to speak on this item, Maury. Oh. You're muted.
Sorry, I apologize. I do not see any hands up.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, now may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, please proceed with the roll call.
Member Bazagian,
Aye.
Member Kraut,
Aye.
Member Weintraub,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro,
Yes.
Mayor Maurer.
Yes. All right, we're on to informational items. The check register for the period of February 10th through March 9th. Are there any questions regarding the check register? Please raise your hand if there are, or if there are members of the public, please raise your hand. I don't see any. All right. Next, item 12, any task force reports? If you could put your hands up. And I will check. I don't see. Oh, yes, I do. Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro. You're on mute.
Maybe that was a sign to keep it short. The mayor and I met, I believe it was since the last meeting as a sustainability task force. We are moving forward with some items, and I'll let the mayor talk about it rather than me taking up that time. Also with Councilmember Weintraub and I met at this school area traffic safety committee for the first time, and there is a follow-up meeting coming up in May, primarily discuss the issues on the Mulholland Highway corridor, and all schools were represented as well as the school district. Also, the wireless task force, Alicia and I met, and I'll let her talk about that because I see her hand up. That was a good meeting, and I want to thank Assemblyman Jackie Irwin for helping that along. Also had meetings in Skag with Legislative Committee as well as the Regional Council and the Valley Economic Alliance. I'll remind everybody who's interested, the Valley Economic Alliance Gala, I believe, is Friday, April 8th, and all council I know are included. And last but not least, I did attend and support with the Calabasas Chamber of Commerce, the United Chamber of Commerce's annual installation, as well as the Mayor of Los Angeles debate in Porter Ranch. It was quite interesting and certainly going to be a great race to follow. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Bazagian.
Just two items. I attended the legislative orientation tour in Sacramento for the California Contract Cities Association since our last meeting, and also a League of California Cities general membership meeting that I presided over in Universal City that same week. Thank you.
Councilmember Weintraub.
We, with Mayor Pro Tem Shapiro, we attended the wireless subcommittee meeting, and this meeting was with Verizon, and we really pressed them to find out how we can get improved coverage in our community. We spoke about how we did our part by updating our ordinance. We talked about the risk of not having service in the event of an emergency. So they are working on it much, much slower than any of us would like. But I feel like we did finally get a commitment that things are in the works. But in the meantime, we received an email address for residents who want to communicate to Verizon about gaps in coverage. And that email is verizonsocal@verizonwireless.com. So David and I, along with staff, are going to hopefully have a meeting with AT&T and the other carriers. And yes, big thank you to Assemblymember Irwin. Her staff helped us coordinate this meeting, and I spoke with her today, and she's trying to help us with AT&T as well. So David and I are really trying on this one with Lyndon's help.
That sounds great. All right, I don't see any other hands up. I attended the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy monthly meeting, and the only thing I can report back that pertained to our region or our city was what I announced earlier, which is the Zoom meeting tomorrow night, an update on the wildlife crossing that will be going over the 101 at Liberty Canyon Road. I think it is Liberty Bell Road, Liberty Canyon, Liberty. All right, so that's that. Does the city manager have anything to report?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple items. Do want to announce a couple changes, and this was previously announced. We finalized the recruitment for our community development director, and we once again wish to congratulate Michael Klein on that appointment. He officially starts in that capacity on Monday, the 28th. And so we're excited to see him take on those responsibilities, and I'm very confident that he'll do exceptionally well. With that, it's also understood that Don Penman will only be with us for a couple more days. We've been fortunate to have Don as a second term with us here. And so we really appreciate Don and what he's done for the city, both as the interim city manager and then most recently as our interim community development director. It's been great to have his wisdom and his experience, his ability to navigate difficult situations. And as a side note, Don is moving on to being a grandfather. His son and his daughter-in-law had a baby yesterday, so this is their first grandchild. And so we wish the Penmans well in this wonderful new endeavor. Another item, council, that we've announced, and Ron alluded to it in the budget update, was that the city of Agoura Hills previously applied for funding through a federal earmark. This was $1 million allocation that was requested for the community center, working with Congressman Ted Lieu's office. We're excited that that allocation was approved. And so that allocation covers different components of repairs and upgrades that are needed at the center, including the roof, but also some other items that were identified in that $1 million. And then also very excited to announce, just as of tonight, about 2.5 hours ago, we received news from Supervisor Kuehl's office that we have been allocated an additional $844,000 to be used towards the roof. This is a wonderful and generous contribution from the supervisor's office that gives us almost $1.1 million, $1.2 million for the roof project, plus the additional monies from the federal allocation to do some other needed repairs at the community center. So we're excited to announce that. And as Ron mentioned previously, we've already secured a project manager for the roof. They're working on the RFP to go out to bid for contract work on that. And with these funds in place, we will have monies to reimburse hopefully almost the entire amount of that project for the roof. So with that, Mayor, I have no other announcements.
Okay. All right. Are there any requests for future agenda or information items? Councilmember Bazagian.
Okay, I have a couple of requests related to the sheriff's department. One would be, and I'm not sure exactly what form it would take, but I think it would be worthwhile to have a separate agendized item on residential burglaries and the increase, and a discussion of some common sense approaches to how these might be either preventable or how to report, and what kinds of evidence is taken. And just have the sheriff do an expansion of what they started to do tonight in discussing it. The other thing I want to potentially do in the future, depending on how that discussion goes, is now that we know that we cannot increase our contract, if the crime rate does continue to go up, I would like to have a discussion on how we might supplement the sheriff's contract with other things. And this would include not just, the freeze, but if in fact the sheriff follows through on what he said he might do, is give us back money and not provide the services in the future. I don't want to be caught flat-footed once that starts happening. We don't have a game plan to protect the public. So those are my two agenda item requests. If other council members wish to join in, I'd appreciate it. Otherwise, those are my requests.
I'll join in on those.
Well, if it's going to be a sheriff's presentation or LA, well, Lost Hills sheriffs, I think all of us have questions about different items, and mine would be, I want to know if we're getting into numbers and looking at numbers, every time an unvaccinated deputy or staff person is exposed, they have to go quarantine for 5 days, and they get paid for that. And then they'll come back and patrol or be in the office. If they get exposed again, it's 5 days out paid while they're at home, and also paying for overtime if they're deputies. And I want to get a sense of what that has cost us. And I'd also like an update, James. I don't think you've given us one for a while about the liability, the sheriff's department's liability, and what's that costing us. And
Liability trust fund, you mean?
yes,
Yes,
yes.
okay.
So
That's
maybe
gonna
we could
go up again.
bundle all of that together. But what you first described sounds like a presentation to the public on what they can do to not be victims.
The reason I mentioned it in this fashion is that obviously I don't think Deputy De Matteo is the person to necessarily discuss the broader issues involving the sheriff's department. So perhaps we can get someone here who can. Deputy De Matteo is a more localized, person. So
I guess I'm not understanding the broader issues. Maybe you could tell, well, offline, but
I can send my questions to Kendon and I'll copy Alicia because she seconded it. We'll see.
and anybody that has any questions or what they want in the presentation, I think that'd be helpful.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Weintraub.
I just wanted to, at a future agenda item, discuss SB 9 and whether we're going to do an urgency ordinance.
I would too.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone, do you have another one, Councilmember Weintraub?
Oh, no, sorry. I'll
Okay, no problem. All right. Anybody else? Okay, we have a pretty full, hopefully a full agendas coming up with both the work plan and what's on it. So I just want to mention that to everybody that hopefully we're going to be busy again. Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned to a special meeting scheduled next Wednesday, March 30th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Thank you.